Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Troy Clayton, and joining us today from the Australian Army is Corporal Daniel Hodgson. We warmly welcome the family of Lance Bombardier, William John Gannon, whose story will be told shortly. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Return and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Clubs Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by family and visitors to the memorial. If you're able, please stand and join in singing the national anthem. Thank you. If you're able, you may be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Bombardier, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Lance Bombardier William John Gannon. William Gannon was born on the 28th of May 1919 in Townsville, Queensland, the only son of William George and Olivia Amanda Gannon. He had three sisters, Olive, Ivy and Alma. Known as Billy, Gannon grew up in Julia Creek, a small outback town near Cloncurry. There, his father owned and ran Gannon's Hotel. Billy attended Julia Creek State School for his primary education and for secondary went to All Souls in Charters Towers. At age 21, Billy enrolled at the University of Queensland, where he started a medical degree and lodged at St John's College. Following the outbreak of war in September 1939, although still in his first year of medical studies, Billy Gannon decided to do his bit and enlist in the Army. He joined the 2nd Australian Imperial Force in Brisbane on the 26th of July, 1940. The next day, he was posted to the 2nd 10th Field Regiment of the Royal Australian Artillery with the rank of gunner. On the 5th of January 1941, Billy was promoted to Lance Bombardier and was posted to Echo Troop and of the regiment's new X-ray battery, later redesignated the 60th Battery. In early February, he embarked for overseas service aboard the Queen Mary. In a letter home, he said, "Our time is taken up with lectures and physical training to keep fit on board." They arrived at Singapore Harbour on the 18th of February before moving up Malaya's west coast to Malacca, where the unit disembarked. When Japan entered the Second World War in December 1941 with the bombing of Pearl Harbor and the invasion of Malaya, the 2nd 10th Field Regiment was stationed at Mea Sing on Malaya's east coast. Their first taste of action came on the 13th of January 1942 when Japanese aircraft strafed and bombed them. Gannon missed this initial action as he had been hospitalised in Johor Bahru with dysentery and a fractured big toe. He returned to duty 2 days after the regiment's guns fired on Japanese troops along the Mea Sing and Dao Road. By the end of January, Allied forces had pulled back to Singapore Island. In support of the 22nd Brigade, the 2nd 10th Field Regiment covered the island's northwest coast. Billy Gannon's 60th Battery was positioned south of the Mandai Road, where, over the next week, they exchanged heavy fire with enemy artillery on the mainland. The main Japanese assault on Singapore began at 11 p.m. on the 8th of February. Crossing the Johor Strait in barges, by midday the next day, the Japanese had broken through. Under heavy shelling and air attack, the 20th and 60th Batteries fired as many as 800 shells, sinking 30 sampans carrying Japanese troops. But with the enemy advancing unchecked, on the 10th of February, both batteries were withdrawn into Singapore. The city fell on the 15th of February, 1942. Allied troops were initially imprisoned in the sprawling Changi prisoner of war camp. But at the end of March 1943, Gannon was among 1,000 POWs of Echo Force who departed bound for Borneo and hard labour. After a brief stay on Bahala Island, the prisoners were sent to Sandakan on the mainland. There, they joined other British and Australian prisoners who had arrived a year earlier and were building an airstrip for the Japanese. At first, conditions and food supply were reasonable. But from mid-1943, conditions at Sandakan deteriorated. Treatment of the remaining prisoners worsened in 1944, with brutal beatings, torture, and dwindling food supplies. By early 1945, the Japanese were fearing an Allied invasion of Borneo. In response, they began moving the prisoners away from the coast, marching overland to Ranau, a small village some 250 kilometres to the west. The first group marched out of Sandakan on the 28th of January 1945. A combination of starvation, illness, grueling conditions, and brutal treatment meant few survived. These became known as death marches. A second march began on the 29th of May, and among them was Billy Gannon. But he did not make it to Ranau. He died on the 17th of June, 1945, either from the effects of malaria or he was killed by Japanese guards. All told, some 2,428 British and Australian prisoners of war died at Sandakan, at Ranau, or on the death marches between those two places. Only 6 Australians survived. Unlike so many others who died, Gannon's remains were later identified. He died just beyond the staging camp near the Musumba stream in the uninhabited Tavai Valley, close to the 103-mile marker. He was reburied first in Sandakan War Cemetery, then in June 1949, reinterred at Labian War Cemetery. His headstone reads, "Fearlessly paid, supreme sacrifice. May all men ever remember." He was 26 years old. When Billy's parents were informed in December 1945, flags were flown at half-mast in Julia Creek. And at the cinema, 1 minute's silence was observed. An article in the local paper described Gannon as a fine type of man who was extremely popular with all who knew him. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my left, among almost 40,000 Australians who died while serving in the Second World War. His photograph is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Lance Bombardier William John Gannon, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We'll remember them.
lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub of Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today. We wish you all a very pleasant evening. Thank you.